All around the world, hidden in museum storerooms, are the fossil bones of animals most people never knew existed. They belong to a group of creatures that rivaled the dinosaurs in size and ferocity. Now, Walking with Beasts has brought these creatures back to life. And this program will reveal the incredible story of how they came to dominate the Earth. They are the mammals. Surprisingly, the very first mammals appeared on Earth at the same time as the dinosaurs. But the dinosaurs quickly took over, and during their 160 million year reign, the mammals made little impression.
The first mammals would have looked like shrews or mice. They were tiny creatures, most of them. Some were so small that if you find the fossils, they are minute compared to the dinosaurs. If you look at this tiny jaw, this is a complete jaw of one of the early mammals, and you can see compared to the jaw size of this dinosaur, if you reconstructed the body of this, it would be about the size of one of T. Rex's teeth.
The mammals looked destined for obscurity, but they were dealt an odd stroke of luck. 65 million years ago, the Earth encountered a few problems. It was the end of the dinosaurs. A few groups of animals struggled through this Armageddon, and the mammals were among them. Today, the world is dominated by a magnificent variety of mammals. But they owe their success to a remarkable set of characteristics that were there from the beginning. Features that made them uniquely adaptable. A warm-blooded metabolism helps maintain their body temperature and live life at high speed. Their fur coat means they can withstand a range of temperatures and so live in an amazing variety of habitats. They produce milk and care for their young, giving them a head start in a dog-eat-dog world. And they come equipped with a variety of different shaped teeth, which means they can munch their way through almost anything. They even have large brains, so they can learn as they grow and are able to adapt as they face new challenges. To recreate this remarkable story of evolution, Walking with Beasts teamed up with scientists and special effects artists. At every stage, the sculptors and model makers relied on studies of the fossils to put flesh on the bare bones. They even took expert advice on where to take their animals to feed and drink. And on the computer, scientists advised animators on how to get the animals up on their feet. Perhaps the biggest challenge was trying to work out how they might have behaved, especially when all that was left of these creatures were a few bones and teeth. Fortunately, paleontologists can tell a lot about a mammal from its teeth.
Mammal teeth are hugely variable. Whereas dinosaurs only had 2 or 3 different kinds of teeth, mammals have dozens and dozens of different kinds, and they're hugely different. This is a tooth of a mammoth, just like the tooth of a living elephant. Here's the root, here's the grinding surface, and it's ridged with these thickened structures across here. Whereas other kinds of mammals have very different sorts of teeth. This is a cave hyena, giant hyena, where the teeth are quite different. At the front here are the incisors, here are the canines for piercing flesh, and towards the back, these extraordinary broad, sharp-edged teeth, which are used for crushing and smashing bone. If you look at the teeth of a mammal, you can usually tell very quickly what it ate. So this little chap here has got sharp, pointed teeth, and they would have been used for piercing the outer carapace of insects. So this is probably an insect eater of some sort. This one here is obviously a flesh eater. When you look at these vast pointed teeth, here's the canine tooth, which would be used for piercing through flesh. The incisors at the front are just as fearsome for cutting up flesh and bone. And towards the back, there are these massive cutting teeth for shredding up flesh, for cutting through bone, for chewing and reducing it before it was swallowed. And then when you look at the teeth of this rather strange-looking creature from South America, immediately you can see from the shape of the incisors, they look a bit human-like. They're not very sharp. This is clearly a plant eater. And towards the back, in the jaws here, the molar teeth, the cheek teeth, are broad, grinding surfaces, rather like teeth of horses or of cattle.
The dinosaurs were lucky. They lived through a period of extraordinary stability in Earth's history. The weather forecast for 160 million years was warm and humid. But mammals have had to deal with a different kind of world, one that would keep the best forecasters guessing. This unpredictable place saw huge fluctuations in climate. Seasons arrived, forests came and went, whole habitats were created and destroyed. And the ice caps just kept on growing. The last 65 million years of the Earth's history has been a roller coaster ride. For the mammals, it was adapt or die, just how they seemed to like it. Their first test, after the Earth had recovered from the Great Extinction, was to adapt to a world completely covered by tropical forests. Just south of Frankfurt in Germany, there is a spectacular fossil site with evidence of just how different the world was 49 million years ago. This is a unique glimpse into a time when mammals had just begun to take off. The paleontologists have discovered that this abandoned mine was once surrounded by lush tropical forest and full of an extraordinary collection of animals.
We have some of the weirdest animals I know of in the history of mammals at all. Extremely small horses with about 30 centimeters high, extremely large predaceous birds, 2 meters high. Leptoctidium is one of the strangest animals which lived here, running or hopping on two legs, and nothing today is like that.
These so-called messel sediments gradually built up over millions of years, capturing an entire ecosystem. The detail in these fossils is exquisite. In some, the fur outline of the entire body is still visible. In others, you can see the remains of the last meal inside their stomachs. The rocks have revealed an extraordinary explosion in diversity. Almost every group of modern mammal can trace its earliest members to this time.
It's an amazing time for the history of mammals, because we have not only these weird mammals, but also a lot of mammals which are parts of the groups we know today.
Some, like the bats and anteaters, haven't changed much for millions of years. But others, like the early horse, were very different back then.
If you compare the small muscle horse with the horse today, you will not think that this is the same kind of animal, but indeed it is. And this is why this site is so fascinating.
Although it was about the size of a cat, this Propaletherium is the forerunner of modern horses. It has all the same features, but in miniature. Though instead of one hoof, it has several hoof-like toes.
Okay, cut there.
Varied though they were, one thing the mammals all had in common was their size.
Most of the early mammals were quite small. They were living in tropical forests, and they got a bit bigger than they had been in the age of the dinosaurs, but probably not much bigger than pig-sized. They were living below the trees. Some of them were able to climb the trees and adapt to different kinds of diets. They couldn't get very big, though, in those forests.
So, if mammals were small, who were top of the food chain? Looking at their modern descendants, you might find it hard to believe, but mammals once lived in mortal fear of birds. Never underestimate the power of a beak.
I just gave Riley a Brazil nut, a nut that would be extraordinarily difficult for us to crack. We can't do it with our teeth. It takes tools for us to do it, whereas Riley, with a skull this big, can actually crack that nut just using its skull.
Now imagine a very, very big Riley.
The first thing you see when you see the skull of this extinct bird is that it obviously could have delivered a pretty impressive bite.
The skull belonged to a gigantic 2-meter-tall bird called Diatryma, or Gastornis.
Now, if we compare Riley's skull, about this big, to the skull of these gigantic birds, we can see that this animal is way overbuilt for cracking anything like nuts.
In fact, Gastornis was over-engineered in many ways compared to modern birds.
There are some large flightless birds around today, such as the ostrich, but it's obvious that it's built along completely different lines. It has a relatively tiny skull, certainly not the massively constructed large skull that we see in these extinct birds.
Gastornis was big and powerful and specialized in one thing: eating mammals.
An animal like Gastornis or Diatryma with such powerfully constructed jaws is able to eat struggling prey, eat vertebrates. Perhaps not just to eat the flesh, but to actually crack open the bones within and extract the highly nutritious marrow within those bones.
Gastornis was a gruesome reminder of something that had come before.
In many respects, these birds were basically doing the same thing as a Tyrannosaurus or any of the other predatory dinosaurs, and many of these little mammals running around may have viewed them pretty much the same way.